My name's Corey, and I'm an alcoholic addict. I'm 34 years old. My sobriety date is March 5th, 2019. Um, a little bit about myself. I was born and raised in a little town called Pickle, Ohio. I was born into a broken family. Parents were divorced, split up. Um, at a very young age, I was molested by the babysitter's son. And when I went to my mom and told her about it, 3 or 4 years down the road, she didn't believe me, and I feel like that's about a time when I stopped trusting people that I loved or anybody around me, and that has affected a lot of my relationships to this day. I have a really hard time trusting people still, and that's something that I work on every day. I put a little bit of trust into somebody, a little more every day, and today things are getting a lot better with that. At a young age, about 11, 12 years old, I started experimenting with alcohol and marijuana. By 13, I was a full-fledged. I used marijuana every day. If I couldn't function without it. On the weekends, I was a big drinker on the weekends, the party life. Anything that made me not feel, or made me feel accepted by others is what I would do. And through high school, I'd go to school high every day. I played sports. I played football because I thought by playing football I'd be accepted by my family. My dad, he was a big alcoholic. My mom was an alcoholic when I was younger. My mom was always there for me. My dad it was kind of wishy-washy with him. If he wasn't drunk if he wasn't drunk, he would be there, but most of the time he was drunk, so he was barely there. So when I was younger, like my parents were divorced and my dad got custody of us. I remember seeing my mom run out of a courtroom bawling her eyes out. And I didn't really understand what was going on. I was 6, 7 years old, and the only reason I went to go live with my dad was because I have 2 sisters, and I wanted to be with them, because we were always together. So living with my dad, he kind of gave us a better life than what my mom could give us at the time. He had a stable job, he had his own house, but I also watched him drink every single day. They would have little parties, and the woman he was with, like, I felt like she was really mean to me. I was the baby of the family. I was the youngest, so my sisters always looked out for me, but like my dad's girlfriends always like belittled me, or they didn't give me the credit, or I was always the one getting the short end of the stick, I felt like. And sometimes, like, I feel like that's where a lot of my acceptance issues come from. I was never really accepted by outside people. I always strived for love, and I feel like that all stems from me being molested. Like, I don't know what true love is because I don't really know. I didn't know how to love myself at that time. So throughout high school, I played sports, tried to get my dad's acceptance, and I would get it to an extent, but it was always after the alcohol. So I would see that as I was going through high school, and I would watch that growing up, so I just thought that was a way of life. It was okay to get high, it was okay to drink, as long as you still functioned as a member of society, as long as you still made it to work and you still provided a roof over your head and your kid's head, and you were putting food on the table. So that was kind of instilled in me at a very young age. So through high school, I would drink every single day. I'd smoke weed every day, and because that's the crowd of people that I was accepted by, because they were just as messed up as I was, I guess. At about the age of 15, I started snorting coke. I was going to school blowed out of my mind on powder. About 16, I started selling it. Started selling that, and started selling weed, and I didn't really like. I pretty much sold it just in order so I could supply me and my friends with drugs. I have an older sister, Erin. She, at about the age of 16, she, when I was 16, she took off. Like, she went out, she hit the streets, started like selling crack, smoking a lot of crack. Like, she just dipped out on her 2 kids. And like, she was the one that raised me for the most part throughout my life. Like, I looked up to her like no other, and I saw her as a role model. So I wanted to be just like her. So she introduced me into the drug game on how to sell a little bit harder and make a little bit better money. And that's just kind of the way I went. But I was still trying to disguise this lifestyle that I was living to my family. So I was still trying to work. I was still trying to like attend school or whatnot. My junior year in high school, I ended up getting kicked out of school for being messed up on Xanax and Valiums and Percocets. Like I was pretty twisted that day, and suspended me from school. And that was one of the first times that I had to go into like a drug. I had to go see a drug counselor. Um, I got really good at manipulating people when I was younger too, because I'd be able to manipulate my parents, because I'd go from one house to the other. So I was able to manipulate the counselor. Um, Things didn't get much better than that. I was smoking crack all the time by the age of 17, 18 years old. It was nonstop. When I was 18 was the first time that I ever shot heroin and cocaine at the same time. And that was when I decided, like, I told myself I'd never do that again. Um, so, 19 years old, I graduated high school by the grace of God somehow, because I knew that was an important thing to do. Like I still had some kind of morals and some kind of values, and I knew what you needed to do in order to live life. So I knew I needed to make sure that I graduated. 6 months after I graduated, I got arrested for trafficking of cocaine, selling cocaine to a minor, and I pled out to a year and a half in prison, but they gave me like a drug rehab place, a CBCF, community-based correctional facility. So I went to this, and with my manipulation skills, I was able to go in there and manipulate myself in and out of there within 4.5 months. 6 months later, after being released, I wasn't even out of the CBCF for 12 hours before I was already back on the streets selling cocaine and snorting cocaine. And I just thought I was untouchable, and that this little slap on the wrist wasn't nothing. I felt like I had earned my street credit because I did a small extended time in a locked up facility, that I had some street credit, and I was just this top dog now. So I get out and I start doing the same thing. I rekindle my relationship with my drug dealer. He puts me on, and I go back to town and I start doing it all over again. And it took off. Like the addiction took off so much quicker than it did the first time. Like it was overnight, and I was back to smoking crack, snorting coke every single day and every single night. Like I couldn't live without it. Going to work on 3 or 4 day benders, falling asleep, running operating machines and stuff like that. So 6 months later, I go on a drug run, and me and the guy that I was with, the guy we were about to hook up with, was being watched by the ATF, and the ATF ripped me out of the car and kicked me to the ground. At that time, me and the guy that I was with, we were facing some pretty serious charges at that time, but due to lack of evidence or whatnot, we were able to get out of that. But I was still on probation from my original charges from when I was selling to the minor, and like the cockiness that I had inside of me and the pride and the ego, when I went in front of the judge for sentencing on my probation violation, I told him that I didn't need a drug rehab, that I would just go spend the rest of my time in prison. So I ended up going to prison for a year, and I kind of got off easy, because I was only had to stay there for 8 months. Got out 8 months later and went to got transitional control and went to a halfway house. As soon as I get to the halfway house, I still think, I got this streak, I got these stripes. I can continue doing what I was doing, because now I'm going to be in the free and clear. I'm at the halfway house for an hour to an hour and a half, and I'm already smoking crack there. I don't ever get busted doing it there. And 2 months after I enter this halfway house, they allow me to go home on house arrest. I get back home, and I start running around with the same crew of people again. They're coming over to see me. I find ways to be able to finesse my ankle bracelet off, and I put it around my dog's neck to make it look like that I'm still moving around my house, and I go back out running the streets. That's where I really got into like opiates. I was getting people dropping off liquid morphine and liquid methadone to me. I'm eating ecstasy, I'm eating acid, and it was nonstop every day, all day. I was still partying inside my house, outside my house, going in and checking in, finessing this halfway house and not drug test me that I'm still doing good because I'm still paying all my fines and my house arrest fees. So I finally complete that, and now that I'm in the free and the clear, it's balls to the wall. Um, it's not. It ended up becoming nonstop. In 2010, my sister Erin, the one that I looked up the most, she ended up getting murdered. And that took a really hit on my whole family. Like it split my family up, and it pretty much killed my dad, and it pretty much killed me on the inside. So I go on this big drug binge. Like it was probably a good 6 7 months, nothing but partying. I'm in strip clubs all the time. I'm eating ecstasy all the time. I'm snorting coke. I'm smoking crack. Like I consider myself a dumpster junkie because if it was in front of my face, I was doing it. I didn't care what it was or what it was laced with. Like if it was going to get me high, and in order for me not to feel anything, then I was doing it, and I was doing everything you had in your pocket, and I was still going to try to get fronts off you. So, um, I ended up taking off to Texas because I had a buddy, a good friend of mine. I had talked him into going to the military, and he was out there doing pretty well with himself. So I take off to Texas because I had caught a few charges, and I was like, I'm not like I'm really messed up right now. Maybe moving away, geographical change will clean my act up. So I go out there, and like I get off like all the hard drugs and whatnot. The only thing I'm smoking K2. And like it was just I needed that one little thing so I didn't have to really feel, or I didn't have to remember what I had done. you know um so while out there, he's getting ready to go overseas, and he's like, hey man, I just built this house, I need you to take care of this house while I'm gone or whatnot. And after he left, I start dabbling in heroin out there, and that's where I started getting really big into it. Like I remember waking up times where I'd throw up, or I was shitting myself all over the place when I wouldn't have it, not really knowing what's going on with me. But I knew once I got that in me, I was good to go. Like things weren't gonna, I'd be able to function throughout the day. Um, I was out there for about a year and a half. Still painting this picture like everything's good. I got my little drug life in the dark. But here I am still working and still trying to make a life for myself. Um, it wasn't working out. I called my other sister. I told her that I needed to come home. That they were all out here doing drugs, and I didn't want to get wrapped up. I was placing the blame on somebody else. I wasn't taking ownership of my own actions. So I sent her money, and she gets me a bus pass to come home. Um, so I come home, and I'm still a heroin addict, and like I kind of still try to hide it. I go back to eating acid all the time. I go back to eating ecstasy all the time. Just go back to straight partying all the time. Not working now. I'm living with my sister. I'm 20, 24, 25 years old. Um, I'm just living off my family, and living off my friends, doing what I can in order to keep myself high, and not to a point where my emotions start running rampant and my thoughts start running wild inside of my head. Because when that would happen, like that would anger me, and confrontation has never been really a problem to me. I'm not scared of getting my ass kicked. I'm not scared of inflicting pain on somebody else. And I feel like a lot of that is because I didn't have any morals or any values inside of inside of my head. I thought it was my way and only my way. And if you didn't like it, it was pretty much a middle finger to the sky at that time. I ended up, when I come back, about a year later, I ended up getting wrapped up into heroin around my hometown, and really bad. I'm injecting it all the time. I'm robbing and stealing from people. I'm taking drug runs still. And that took off pretty rapidly. After I lost a few jobs, I run out of money, and I can't sell heroin because I do too much heroin. I've OD'd probably 20, 30 different times, and I've always been brought back. Not really. I remember the first time that I OD'd, I told my mom that I had tried to kill myself, because I didn't really want anybody to know that I was on heroin like that. And I ended up being put into a mental hospital just for 3 days. It was pretty much like a detox center. They cleaned me out for 3 days, and they sent me back on the street thinking everything was going to be all right. So during this big heroin thing that I'm going on, like I have no money. I'm not selling anything. I don't have a vehicle. I'm living off my mom's couch. Like I'm just going down pretty quickly, you know. So I find out that I start robbing my mom for her antique jewelry that was passed down through generations of our family, and I start pawning it off, just getting a little bit of money as I can just to scrape it up, just so I can get well and I can continue on with my day. You know, after I ran through my mom's jewelry, I went and I had some friends that really trusted me and really allowed me to come into their home or whatnot. I started stealing their antique jewelry too that was passed on down through their family too. You know, I was pretty much, I had no moral, I had no value, I had no love for myself, I had no love, so I didn't have any love for anybody else either. You know, I had no respect for myself. I didn't care if I lived or died. So if I'm not respecting myself, I'm definitely not going to respect anybody else at this time. You know, I was a pretty grimy person, you know, and I can see that today, and I can own up to my part in that time. You know, back then in my active addiction, like there was no way I was going to own up to that. There was no way that I was going to let you blame me for that. It was pretty rotten of me, you know, and today I'm so thankful that my mom has forgiven me for that, and the friends that I had robbed and stole from at the same time, they have also forgiven me for that. You know, and that's the only reason they have forgiven me is because they see me doing the next right thing. They see me trying to better myself, and they don't want to hold that against me. I've been off heroin for 5 years, you know, but it doesn't stop at the heroin. I ended up getting busted for all them thefts that I had. I think I had like 29 theft charges and receiving stolen property, you know, and I got 18 months out of that. I mean, that's what they maxed me out on misdemeanor charges. And nothing was grand theft. So I'm just a whole bunch of minor stuff, you know. I feel like subconsciously that I wanted to get caught because I was so tired of being sick and tired. I was so tired of having to go lie and steal and cheat my way just so I could make it through my day without feeling like I was going to die. So I end up getting this 18 months, and I hear about this program called the drug court program. And I sit in jail for 90 some days. And they let me out on this drug court program. Things went pretty well at the first few months of drug court, you know, until I didn't get no sponsors. I didn't really attend meetings unless I had to. I went through counseling, and I kind of would just feed them enough information to where they're like, all right, well, he's struggling a little bit, but things are okay, you know, like he's still sober and this, that, and the third, you know. So I decide that I'm going to rekindle some old relationships because now I'm on top of the world. I got 6-7 months clean. Like, I can go hang out with my old friends, and maybe I can persuade them into getting clean too with me, you know. And that was probably a big mistake right there, you know, because I go start hanging out and I start reconnecting with all these people that I was getting high with, and next thing you know, within a few weeks, I'm getting high now again too. I know I have to go, for drug court, you have these color codes, like you got to call into this machine and see if you have the drug test that day. So I went on a weekend bender on some cocaine, you know, and I had to call in on Monday, and it was my time to do my color code. So I drank a whole bunch of water. I drank probably 8 gallons of water that day, and I go in and I'm peeing straight water, but I didn't flush the cocaine out of my system. So my PO at the time, he's like, well, why is it so clear? I said, well, I've been working a lot outside, you know, and been drinking a lot of water. And when he finally tests it, it shows up positive for cocaine. And I lie all the way till I had to go back in front of the judge, you know, and that's finally when I admitted it. Thankfully, they give me another chance. They give me 3 days in jail, and they let me back out, you know. During this time on drug court, I had gotten a grant from the state in order to be able to go to Hobart Welding School to get a welding degree, you know, free or clear. You know, but my addiction tells me that I need to take this school loan out still, you know. So 8 months into this drug court, I've already relapsed once. Now I have about 60 more days clean. I get a $9,500 check for school loans, you know, that I didn't even really have to take out, you know. But my addiction tells me that I need a new phone, that I need a car, that I need to go get new clothes, you know. Well, really, I get this $9,500 check, and my addiction tells me, like, hey, you can eat LSD and you can eat mushrooms and it'll never show up on a drug test. So for another 9 months while in drug court, I was eating LSD as much as I could. You know, I blew through $9,500 in 2.5 months on just buying acid and mushrooms. You know, I was showing up into court tripping, my ego and my pride was so high, like, I knew they couldn't catch me, so I'm sitting there laughing in front of their face, just going about my daily life like I'm king shit or something like that, and it really wasn't like that. Like I was just falling right back into it. So before all that had happened, I had a child, and I was terrified. I was really scared when we had found out, I wasn't living the best life. I know that I'm strung out on drugs, so I'm trying to make things better. I'm trying to get clean, but I really can't get clean because I'm not really trying. I'm going to work. I'm falling asleep at machines again on heroin. My child ends up becoming a lot of the reasons why I sit here today and I'm still alive. Because I want to break the cycle in my family. I want to be happy, internally happy. I want to feel like I have a self-worth for myself today. I don't have to appease anybody else. I don't need acceptance from anybody else. I accept myself for the things I've done, for the things that I am doing, and the life that I'm living today. Today I have a lot of support, through even a lot of the mess. It's a big reason why I keep pushing through, like I tell myself all the time, like even on bad days, like I tell myself no matter what, just don't pick up because that's just gonna restart the whole cycle all over again. So I've been clean from heroin for 7 years, but I started doing meth about 4 years ago every day. At first, I thought it was the greatest thing in the world because I was getting so much done. I was really focused, but that didn't last very long. Shortly after that, I couldn't control my emotions. Like my self-worth at that time was so low. Like I didn't think anybody cared about me. I sat on a pity pot for 4 years long. Like woe is me. This is happening because this has happened. Like I could always pick out a point why I was acting the way I was acting, and I would use my sister's death as an excuse to get high. Like 365 days of the year I'm getting high because I miss my sister, when in fact like I'm getting high because I want to get high. I got high on happy days, I got high on sad days, I got high on rainy days, sunny days. It didn't matter because I was getting high. Meth took over. Meth took my soul. Like heroin tried to kill me, but meth kept me alive in order for me to be soulless and walk around this world so angry. Like it was, I can't even, a lot of the things I can't even I don't even remember how they happened. I slit my wrist in front of my girl and my kid while we were on a family vacation, and sprayed blood all over her because I was high. I was coming off of methamphetamines at that time. I tried to burn my house down because me and my kid's mom had gotten an argument, and I thought that if I'm bigger and I'm meaner, or if I'm louder, or if I'm crazier, then she's not going to be so scared to do anything about it. I had a really good, I would use anger to manipulate people. I would use anger to control people. And if I didn't have drugs inside of me, that's when my anger would come out the most, So I'd be able to manipulate them because they'd be so scared that if they didn't give me some money, or if I didn't get high, that I would flip out, and who knows if the house would still be standing by the time they got back. A lot of that was because I was scared. I was scared of myself. I was scared to get clean. I thought I was stuck in such a cycle, and I thought I was less than everything, that I didn't think that my life didn't matter to me, so why would it matter to anybody else at that time? And that was my addiction telling me that. Things got so bad on methamphetamines, I thought people were in my walls. I thought there was a government conspiracy at one point in time. I thought my family had set up to where intervention was following me around because I thought I kept seeing the same cars. There's a saying in one of the programs that says jails, institutions, and death. I've experienced every single one of those by my own hands, not by anybody else's. I've tried to commit suicide multiple times. I was in a 5-day coma for eating so many sleeping pills. They didn't think I woke up with a breathing tube down my neck and a thing in my pee hole, and that none of that had stopped me. I would take a little bit of break, but it wasn't up until I went into treatment over a year ago, and when I took myself into treatment, I just couldn't do it anymore. I was so spiritually broken. I had no hope left. I had an inkling of hope. There's a small smidgen of hope left, and I was losing my family. I had got a 5-year CPO on my mother's child and my kid due to my anger, due to my drug addiction. And when my kid got taken away from me, that's when I knew that something was wrong. Like, I knew that I couldn't continue on and I couldn't keep living that way. So that's when I had called up Woodhaven, and I didn't really know if they were going to take me or not. They just kept telling me to call every couple of days, and I told them I didn't know if I could make it. I told them I was going to probably end up dead in the next 2 days if I didn't get in there. On the second day, they told me they had a bed for me. I had to be there by 11 o'clock. So I get high one last time before I go into treatment, and I even call them and tell them I'm going to be late, and they said, no, you're not. We're going to come pick you up, So they were there at my house ready to pick me up at 11 o'clock. I had already had my bags laid out. During treatment, I dealt with a lot. Like, I talked a lot of things out with my counselor in there, It was only a 60-day program, and I knew at that time, like, 60 days is not going to be enough. I can't just go home and expect everybody to forget about all the chaos and the mess that I had forgotten about. So I heard about this thing called sober living. I knew I wanted something where, they emphasized a lot about God, because I was so spiritually broken and I had no higher power, Drugs were my higher power for 20-some years of my life. And I had found this place called Good Shepherd Ministries in Dayton, Ohio, and I was like, that's my place. I called the program director, 2 weeks into treatment, and he said if I continue to do good and don't get in any kind of trouble, he'll save a bed for me. The gentleman saved a bed for me for 7 weeks, and I held up to my end of the deal, and he held up to his end of the deal. When I got to Good Shepherd, I still wanted to control situations. Like, I didn't want to let go of full control. I had a little bit of clean time in me, but when I got out, like, my family was still pissed off at me. Like, they were still mad because of the things that I had done. They didn't think this was serious because they kept telling me, like, well, we remember back when you were in drug court, we thought that was serious, and that wasn't serious, So they needed to see action. They wanted me to stop talking about the things that I was doing. They just wanted to see me. They wanted to see it happening. So I get to Good Shepherd, and I'm still angry, I'm still trying to control situations. I'm still trying to do things my way. I wasn't, like, fully fledged ready to give everything up to a higher power. I started going to meetings a lot. I got a sponsor, and when I started doing the step work, that's when I feel like that's when things really started changing for me. I started making amends to people. I started apologizing, sincerely apologizing to people, and just being an open book to everybody. And, like, when I would have problems, I would call my sponsor. And if my sponsor didn't answer, I would pull somebody aside that I knew in the program, or I'd call other people in the program. Like, I stopped letting my thoughts take over my head. I stopped letting them take me down rabbit holes to where I couldn't get out of, which would inevitably would have led me back to getting high. I'd be lying to you if I didn't sit here and tell you that there are times that I still feel like I want to get high, or my disease tells me, like, oh, you're okay, you can do this one time, or we don't have to use meth this time, we can just go drink a few beers at the bar and go hang out with some friends. Like, that's my disease telling me that stuff, like, because I've tried that before. I've tried to take one thing and replace it with another thing, and it always leads back to the same thing, if not worse, so I rely on a lot of help from my sponsor or people in the AA community, or a lot of people at the Good Shepherd place. My family now talks to me, heart-to-heart talks all the time. They don't judge me for anything that I've done. They see the changes that I'm making. I'm accepted by community now. Like, I'm not scared when cops roll up. I welcome them with open arms. Handshakes and everything like that. The sober living I'm at, we do a lot of community service. We were out there in the community showing them that, this thing, it is possible for people like me and people like all over the world that struggle with addiction, that they can get clean, I was baptized a couple weeks ago before the coronavirus hit, like, I was baptized, and I've never felt so much more free. Like, I felt like a lot of stuff was lifted off of me. I have a few sponsees now. Like, I'm helping other people get clean now, and that is because I've put in the work. I've accepted things, and ask for forgiveness. I hit my knees on a nightly basis. I thank God for the bad times. I thank God for the good times, because when I'm at the bottom, or when I feel like I'm at the bottom, like, that's where I know God is at, and that's when I know the signs are going to come out for me. And I would have never in a million years would have guessed that I could be truly sober for over a year now. And the blessings that I've had in the past year, like, I can only imagine what the next year is going to bring, or the following year. As long as I keep putting the next foot forward and doing the next right thing, and understand that everybody has bad days. Everybody goes through problems throughout life, and I don't have to pick up and get high because I don't want to feel that. I can feel that today. I can manage it now, and I know how to open up to people now, and I know how to come at it in a positive way. And anger isn't always the best way to do it. Don't get me wrong. There are days that I get upset and angry, but I don't have to trash things. I don't have to set fire. I don't have to mutilate my body over it. I can understand and I can accept that I'm okay. I'm angry, and this is why I'm angry. As long as I don't act on impulse, as long as I don't act or run on them feelings, things just go so much better. And I hope that if people are watching this, whether it is from an addict's point of view or a family's point of view who has an addict in their family, can't force anybody into doing anything. They have to want to do it for themselves. Encouragement's always good, and support is one of the biggest things that has helped keep me afloat. Today I get to see my kid, and today I talk to my child. He looks up to me as a father, like a real father. I'm not just there in a physical form. I'm there for him emotionally, spiritually, and he tells me all the time how he loves God, and that's one of the best things there is in the world. Like, I couldn't he's an amazing kid, and being his father is even more of a blessing. I'm an actual father. I'm not just a sperm donor. I am there for him in any shape or form. Thank you very much. Bye.